Yeah, man.
Okay. Zack, great to see you, man. Marmalade Mountain, one of my new favorite bands. The funniest thing about this is that we met via an Instagram ad, which I didn't know those things even fucking worked. But I was sitting in an airport in Zurich, and this ad popped up. I'm like, this sounds pretty cool. And then I saw you were pals with my friend Micah Ehrenberg, who I'm a big fan of, and he sat in on my forthcoming record. So I just kind of instantly became a fan of yours, and apparently digital advertising still holds some sort of relevance.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I love it. It's great to meet you. It's been cool. I'm glad we got to meet up in LA too.
Yeah, and I hit you up last minute, just totally cold call, and we met up on a sidewalk in Hollywood, and just skirted a bunch of puddles of poop on the sidewalk and walked around dirty Hollywood for an hour, and it was a great hang.
Yeah, man.
I love how savvy you are with, I mean, outside of your songs being great and your production, and you produce all your stuff, yeah?
It's like a mixture of me. It's a lot of self-production, and then I also team up with people. I sort of
Right.
am learning my own limits, and so I bring in other people if I feel like I've hit a limit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell me about these hitchhiking tours. You said you were doing a bunch of hitchhiking tours. That sounds cool.
Yeah. Well, like when I first got started in music, I had like no training or background. I just kind of started playing in punk bands and stuff when I was a teenager in high school. And after high school, I got really into like Woody Guthrie and folk music and all that, and I really wanted to just like get out there. I actually wanted to be a writer first, so I was big into all the beat stuff, and I wanted to go out and travel and write, and so I just started doing it. And I brought a guitar as a means of kind of like having something to do and connect with people and hopefully make some money. So that was kind of what that was about. And I did a lot of hitchhiking and playing, and that's how I learned to like write songs, perform songs. I learned about folk music and I learned about singing just like by doing it on the street for money. So that's kind of like where I got my start. And there's a lot of stuff that happened in there, so I don't even know. I wouldn't even know where to start with that. But um, yeah, that was
You're
kind of like the beginning.
you were just free balling it. You just kind of got, and you would just sit on the side of the road and throw your thumb out and pick whatever ride you could get.
100%. So basically what happened was like I went out. Well, you're in Milwaukee, right?
That's right.
Yeah, man, I love this. So I was on a tour with a guy, and we played in Milwaukee, and I met this girl, and I remember it was like after the show. I can't remember where we played. We played with the local Milwaukee band called the Modern Machines, and we went up on some like reservoir that was all like spray painted up. And I remember she just like gave me a haircut in the middle of the night, and I decided like I'm in love with this girl, and we like kept in touch over over email, and she invited me out, and I asked her where she was going to be in the summer, and she said I'm in Maine. And I was like, cool, I'll be there. And so I was living in California, and I got a piece of cardboard, and I wrote New York City on the cardboard. I went out to the highway, and I just like held up my sign, and people laughed at me, for about like 7 hours or something like that before I caught my first ride, and then just started hitchhiking, and things kind of went from there. And then yeah, like with music, it was like, I didn't know what I was doing, so I would just sit down and start playing. And I'd always been a bass player in a band, so I didn't know how to play songs or sing songs, and I was really nervous at first. But in a lot of ways, like learning on the street was a safe place because the stakes are nothing. Like you're basically invisible to people anyway, so really it doesn't matter if you fuck up. And so it was like a free place to just kind of play around and try things. And it's like, well, I'm going to leave the next day. Right? So if I make a bad impression or whatever, it's all good. And so in that way, it was like a really cool way to learn. But pick up a lot of bad habits too, like musically or whatever. But really a beautiful experience. So yeah.
Oh man, I love that. Just throwing yourself out there, like kicking your own ass logistically and creatively. That's probably why you're still doing it, man, because you roughed like the toilet bowl circuit or the hitchhiker circuit, and now you're a better man for it.
Dude, yeah, it was rough, but it's cool now because it's been 20 years almost since that happened. And now, like, people that I was meeting while I was hitchhiking who are also doing that, are now people that, you and I would hear on the radio, or people know of, and are starting to be successful musicians, and they got the same start. So it was like they're hopping trains or hitchhiking or whatever, and we used to like meet up and play folk music together. And it's just cool to see that community some people really came out of it and are making really beautiful music, you know, and that's a really cool thing.
Who was
Um,
the weirdest person that picked you up?
oh my God. I got a lot of weird rides. And it was sketchy, you know. It's like I think a lot of people think that it's like, you know, if you're a woman, you're gonna have bad experiences. If you're a dude, you're gonna be fine. Not the case, as it turns out. There's a lot of lonely truck drivers out there, we'll put it that way.
Wow.
So you know, usually people, for the most part, people are really kind and they see you out there. I think they see a version of themselves that they want to help. You know what I mean? And so in that way, you meet a lot of really beautiful people who just are kind and are, you know, I remember I left with $100 taped to the inside of my leg. By the time I got back, I had like $550. So people were just like giving me things. I was trying to say no, and they would continually try and help. So that was, I don't want to paint a bad picture, but that would be like the overall experience. But then you get, you know, weirdos. There's people who pick you up and are just like, hey man, let me suck your dick, you know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
like that, and you got to like learn how to navigate that. I had my favorite ride though was with this guy. He was lonely and he just wanted companionship, and I remember the first night I stayed in his truck, so he gave me a ride from where did we start? In Gary, Indiana. I'd actually just been arrested or detained for hitchhiking, which was a funny experience, because they didn't have anything. They were just like, okay, we're going to take you in, take your photo, ask you some questions, look for some drugs. And then, you know, it was like, okay, well, we don't have anything on you, so we're going to let you go. And I'm like, okay, where do you want us to drop you off? And I was like, right back on the highway so I can hitchhike out here. Like, I don't want to be here anyway. So it's kind of a funny experience. But this guy picked me up and I rode with him for like 5 days. And I remember on the first night, like he asked me if I wanted to bunk with him, like sleep with him. And I like really kind of like softly declined. I was like, hey, I'm not into that, you know? And he was like gracious. He was like, that's cool. You know, you can still ride with me if you want. And we became friends, and I rode with him for 4 or 5 days. And he took me all the way from Indiana down to the south and then up to Connecticut, where I hopped out in order to get to New York City. So it's like, you know, you meet those kinds of people, and then you meet total creeps who are just trying to sleep with you. And you know, there's some crazier stories in there too that get a little bit more long-winded, but yeah, it was
Please.
the full range. Okay, so I think the craziest experience I had, I was living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Um, and this was like kind of right before I really started hitchhiking. I had moved out there to open up a record store. Um, I guess more so to play in a band, and to like work at this record store with an old friend of mine. And I remember when I first moved there, I met this kid named Daniel, and he was like this like long hair Hesher skater dude, played metal. And I remember the first night I met him, he was really drunk and he was really going through it. He was having a really hard night. He was like really sad and he was crying. And I remember thinking like, well, this guy's kind of wild. And I was trying to figure out like what was wrong. And he was crying because he had recently had a waterbed accident. So he was like sleeping in a waterbed. And he told me that it had like messed up. This is sad, but it's hilarious. It had like messed up the nerves in his arm, so he couldn't shred as hard. Like, I'm like, this is a true story. This dude was like heshed out, like full metal garb, everything was like so wrecked over this waterbed experience. He's like, I can't shred like Ingve
Oh my God.
I was like, this dude's gonna be my friend, you know. So
Yeah.
we decided, okay, we're gonna go get stoned and like walk around this park in Tulsa. It's called Mohawk Park, and which is a great name. We wanted to go, and I wanted to see the armadillos. It was like really exciting to me. I grew up in California, and like knowing there was going to be armadillos in the park was a big
Hell
deal. So we go out there and we get kind of lost, and it got dark, and we're high, and we're kind of wandering around. This is a dark story, so just a warning.
Yeah.
It's real weird, but we got totally lost. It got dark and we got out to the road and we were trying to find our way back and we couldn't find it. And we saw some headlights coming towards us. And so we kind of like waved this car down, and the car stops to pick us up. And it's kind of this like creepy Southern dude picks us up, and he's like, where are you boys going? You know, we're like, we're trying to get back to our car. We got lost. We were out on a hike and we just can't figure out where we were. Could you help us get back to the parking lot? And he's like, yeah, hop in, you know, and we get in his car, you know, and all the doors like click, they all lock.
Oh yeah.
Pretty classic sort of scene.
What do you look like? Not that that matters.
Oh, he was just this like he was just kind of like, yeah, he was like balding. He was probably like 40s, 50s, white dude, kind of small, just kind of slithery. He just was like, but he had like kind of like a soft sort of look to him at the same time. Like he was like, I don't know, he was a little bit of a creep for sure. I mean, a major creep, let's be real. But like, I remember the first thing he asked of me was like, "Hey, can you hand me that bottle that's under the seat?" And I was like, "Oh, this is a weird situation." And there was a bottle of scotch under the seat, and I handed it to him, and he starts like chugging it.
Oh, great.
And he's handing it to Daniel in the back seat, and Daniel's like stoned and just chugging the scotch or whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is bad, you know. And I remember feeling a sense of responsibility immediately. So he would like give it to me, and I would like fake drink it or whatever. And he wasn't taking us back to our car. And I remember asking him like, "Hey, like, can you please take us to our car? We're just trying to get home." He's like, "No, why don't you guys come over and have some drinks with me, and we'll play some games." And then,
Dahmer.
yeah, I know, right? So he took us back to his house, and we go inside. At this point, Daniel's hammered, and he like gets on the couch and like passes out on the couch. So I can't leave. I'm kind of stuck with this dude. And I remember he takes me inside, and the first thing we get to his house, he's like, "I want to show you where I keep the bodies." And he takes
No
me.
way.
This is real, man. He takes me to like the door to his basement. There's no bodies or anything, but he's just like fucking with us, you know. And
Yeah.
he's like, "I want to show you where I keep the bodies." He shows me the door to the basement. He's like, "I'm just fucking with you, but let me show you my guns." And then he shows me his pistol, and then he made me take a shower, which is really obviously a bad sign. So I had to take a shower in this dude's house.
Well, because like he was like holding a gun to you, or like
he
kind of.
didn't he didn't hold the gun to me. He was just clearly threatening. He was trying to
Yeah.
express like, "I'm a threat, do what I say." You
Oh
know what I mean?
God.
Yeah, it was fucked. And the worst part of the night though, it was he wanted to play Scrabble. And so like, he makes me take this shower. He doesn't do anything. And I'm like, oh, clearly he's setting me up. I thought I was gonna get raped or something, you know, it's like really horrible. But he just wanted to like play Scrabble with me. And we like went into his living room, and he set up Scrabble, and he brought out another bottle of scotch and got completely hammered and just spent the whole night like cheating in Scrabble. And it was just like so fucking annoying that I'm just, like,
What?
kidnapped, stuck with this dude. My friends passed out, and I'm like playing a shitty game of Scrabble with this psychopath, you
Do you
know?
think he teabagged your friend while you were in the shower?
Um, Probably, you know,
Oh
but
no.
we'll never know, man. Daniel knocked himself out, you know? And
I
yeah,
can't believe your friend went full buddy on that bottle and just slammed it. Like, does he doesn't really have a radar for a sketchy zone?
no. And I think at this time he was probably like 17 years old. Like I was 19. He was,
Oh, okay. Well, that, yeah, I mean that
so we
that
were
paints a
straight up,
picture.
yeah, we were straight up abducted by this dude. We got away,
Yeah.
everything was okay in the end, but it was a batshit crazy experience, you know. And this was like
Wow.
the beginning of my hitchhiking experiences. So I started having like, I learned very quickly like how to navigate really fucked up situations, because they do happen. It is sketchy, but like if you learn how to navigate and stay smart and stay on top of your stuff, you can like get through things. You know what I mean? So it worked out, but this was a wild experience, you know.
Wow,
Um,
great story, man. That's trippy. So
it was wild. Yeah.
what about on a positive note, like did any like really just random performances manifest where someone was like, "Hey, I'm a actual promoter at this club. I love your stuff. Saw you play on the street. Come play this show." Anything like that?
Oh
Anything
yeah.
gig highlights? Yeah.
I remember being in New York City. I used to live out in College Point, Queens, which is pretty far out there. So I would like busk all day at Washington Square Park, busk all night at the subway stops, you know, on the L train, essentially like Bedford Avenue and stuff, where all the hipsters were. And then I'd take the subway back to Flushing, Queens, and then take a bus at like 2 a.m. to get me home so that I could get some sleep and then go out and do it again the next day. And one day I was sitting at the bus stop outside, it must have been October or November. It was kind of cold. And I was just like sitting on a crate in the middle of the night, just like playing slide guitar. And this big burly dude came up to me and was like, "Hey man, you're pretty good at that. Like, what's your deal?" And I told him, you know, I'm a busker and I play around town and stuff. And he threw like a burlesque show in New York. And he asked me if I'd be willing to like come and play backing guitar for some dancers. So he had me like come to this club. At this point, I must have been about 20, I think. So it was still illegal for me, but he like snuck me into this burlesque club and had me play like backing slide guitar for some burlesque dancers who were like stripping to me playing guitar at this club.
Whoa.
And so that was like for me, I was like, this fucking rules, you know. Like, this is definitely the vibe. So I love that. I love the like sleaziness of it, but also like he was a really nice dude. The dancers were really nice, and it was like, you know, threw me $200. It was like a really cool experience. So like that was a cool, just like off the street thing, you know. I get stuff like that quite often actually. That was like where most of the money came from, you know, was like these like one-off random gigs.
Yeah. Wow, man, you got enormous nutsack. So how much could you pull in like a day working in the New York subway? Is that what were your shifts? Like 4 hours or 8 hours or
It was probably like 6 to 8 hours, but it was like split up, you know, because it would be like a few hours in Washington Square Park and then like a few hours in the subways, and then maybe I'd play some open mics or shows at night, or I'd teach a guitar lesson or a harmonica lesson. It was all pretty fast paced too, so you just kind of kept going, you know.
and you could make a living, yeah,
Yeah.
ish, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, not really, but you know, it was like you get 5, 6, 7 people in an apartment and all of a sudden you can afford it, you know? So, you know,
Right.
and everybody else was doing the same thing. I worked with this guy, actually a dude who I hitchhiked across the country with. He goes by Farrell Foster. He's out in New York, and we actually ended up starting a show together that still happens now. It just had its like 16th or 17th anniversary. It's called Roots and Ruckus out in New
Cool.
York City. And so, you know, we would kind of all hit the same spots or switch off and stuff. But he's a master busker. I don't know if he still does it anymore because he's probably, you know, getting better gigs now. But he really taught me kind of honestly everything I knew at that point, just like how to busk, how to play in the streets. So yeah.
Wow. And did you have like local staple buskers coming up and like giving you shit for being on their territory, anything like that?
Barely. I think there was an amount of respect, first of all, just for how to go about it. I'm kind of a pretty like I'm not I like to think that I'm a pretty kind person, so I'm not like stepping on people's toes. I'm sure if I was more aggressive about it, it would be, but I was pretty like respectful of the locals who'd been doing this a long time, and I wouldn't take their spots or whatever. There's a code, you know?
Yeah.
But most of them were like respectful and positive towards me. They saw me as like a kid that they wanted to like help, you know? So
Right.
there were some guys in Washington Square Park who would like take me in and invite me to be a part of it. In New York at that time, this was around the time that they were making No Direction Home, that Bob Dylan documentary.
Oh, what a great doc. Holy
Right.
shit.
So like when I went there, for example, they had a celebration of the doc and everybody was there. It was like, I remember meeting Susie Rotolo and what's his name, John Cohen, and all of them. They were all just hanging out in the park. And so they all saw, everybody in New York was like looking for the next Bob Dylan. And there was all these people doing what we were doing. And so people were really kind, honestly. And they would take us in and they would show us, they would teach us lessons. We'd get shows, and it was a really beautiful experience. You know, people really did want to help, which was cool.
Wow. And were you couch surfing the whole time, just hopping from place to place, or how's the sleeping?
That's how I started. You know, like I actually ended up in New York at first on accident. It was on that hitchhiking trip when I was talking about the guy who took me in his truck and dropped me off in Connecticut. I ended up hitchhiking down to New York from there, and I didn't have a place to stay, and I just went. There was the Republican National Convention protest. This was like 2004, I think. Can't remember what year that election was, but yeah. And I just started seeing people I knew from previous times in my life. I'd run into them at a protest, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, come crash at our house" or whatever. And I met a bunch of people from there, and yeah, and I would just stay with different people, or I would sleep outside. I'd find some cardboard and just do it.
Really?
It's weird because this is like a long time ago, and so it's like it doesn't feel like my life now. But yeah, man, I mean, I remember one of the first things I learned was like, if you got to find a place to crash, just climb on top of something. Nobody's gonna look up. So if you like
Oh,
get up like on top of a gas station, for example, you can find a place to sleep, and like nobody's gonna fuck with you. Whereas if you like sleep on the ground in front of the gas station, everyone's gonna fuck with you or try and steal your stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, and so started there, and then I ended up getting an apartment when I went back to New York to meet up with Farrell. Me and him and this and another guy. He goes by Hubby Jenkins now. Actually, he won a Grammy Award and everything for playing music. He's great. And then we all lived in this place together in College Point, and kind of different people coming and going, and met a lot of songwriters then that are still out and about. So
God
yeah.
damn. Any particularly hilarious lodging when we talk about sleeping outside on cardboard?
Oh my God. I mean, I think the most interesting to me, I don't know if it was particularly hilarious, but the most interesting was staying in homeless shelters. Like I think it was because it was such a eye-opening experience. I'd never been around that. I grew up in upper middle class. So for me to be out there and like not have a place, it's cold. I remember in Boston, me and Farrell didn't have a place to stay, so we stayed at the homeless shelter. And just to like see these people and see like they're just normal people that are in living this lifestyle. Or they're crazy people. There's all kinds of people. I shouldn't say they're just normal people, but like some of them, yeah. And people, there's the same sort of dynamics and politics in that community that there are in any community, and hearing about, who to be cool with, who not to be cool with, where to keep your stuff to keep it safe, all of that. That was really interesting. I remember like randomly ending up in like a flop house in Los Angeles with there was some weird drug lord kind of like gay favor scene stuff going on.
Yeah.
And me and Farrell got wrapped up in that scene for like a day or two, and we're like, this is fucked, let's get the hell out of here. So there was like all kinds of that sort of stuff, squats and all that. Yeah.
And you're like 17, 18, 19 at this time?
Well, this ranged from like 19 to like 20, 19 to 20 really, when I was hitchhiking, maybe 19, 21. Yeah. I think that was how old I was when all this was going down.
And what were the bouts of loneliness like on those weird, just like train hopping tours? Or were you just buzzing on the novelty and the adrenaline the whole time? There must have been lows.
There were lows, but at that point in my life, I didn't even conceive of loneliness. I didn't conceive of things like, when you're at that age and with that sort of like idealism, optimism, it's like, I'm on a journey, I'm doing something awesome. And there wasn't a moment that I wasn't like journaling or writing about this and thinking like, I'm writing my story right now, especially because I was obsessed with the beats. And so I thought, I'm going to be a writer, so I want to keep track of all this. These are all my story. I'm writing my book.
And you still have all that stuff.
Still have it all.
What are you going to do with it?
I don't know. I've had people like that wanted me to turn it into a book or something, and maybe I will kind of once I'm done with doing whatever it is I'm doing now. But like, yeah, I just like collected all these writings and journals and songs, like wrote tons and tons of songs. So just, I don't know, I'm still doing, I guess that's what we do as songwriters, right? You kind of like document your emotional experience and it becomes your story. And like, I guess all of it is just part of that, is the lore. And I think some of it gets lost, especially when you use monikers and stuff, right? You kind of lose track of like, where did this start and where did this other thing end? But for me internally, it's all still there. It's all still a huge part of who I am. So I don't know what'll happen with it, but it's all there somewhere.
Yeah, please finish it. That'd be incredible.
Yeah.
And last question on the hitchhiking tour. Did you ever get to hop trains?
Yeah, I had a few train hopping experiences. I mostly hitchhiked, but there was like probably like 4 or 5 funny rides we got on trains, one of which went the exact opposite direction than we expected, which was a bit terrifying because, you hop on and once it starts, you can't hop off.
Wow.
So you don't know where it's going to stop necessarily unless you really got the guides down, which we didn't. And you just ride until it stops and then you get off. So we ended up in the wrong town.
And how do you get on them? Do you, I mean, it's not like quite like in the movies where you're jumping on a moving train. Do you hide in a specific compartment? Like what's the hack to making it work?
I wouldn't be the best person to talk too much about it because we kind of just did that. Like we would hide and then the train would come. And if it was slow enough, we would just run and jump on it.
Nice.
I did meet people who had lost their legs by doing this. So it's a dangerous thing. It's a real thing that people do get hurt. And you have to be prepared, because it's like, you don't know where it's going necessarily, especially if you're not, there's guidebooks. So if you're really in this, the real train hoppers, they have it all down to a T. They know where the trains are going. I don't know how, but it's all just sort of mapped out. But for us, it was like, we just got on and didn't know what was going to happen. And we were pretty disorganized about it. So we ended up in the wrong town. And I remember me and my buddy Lane, just like, the train stopped, kind of slowed down in the middle of downtown Davis, which is basically like Sacramento. And we just like hopped off in the middle of this intersection. I remember this is like looking at us like, what? We just like hop off with our guitars and our bags and went and found a roof to go sleep on. So
God damn, that is classic.
It was a wild time, man. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I gotta say, you're like the most ideal guest for the show. This is like really what it's all about.
Dude, I love that. Yeah.
And then what happened after that tour? After you got some stability and got an apartment in New York City. How did your life change and your creative life evolve?
Well, funny enough, it certainly wasn't stable. We had this apartment. It was cool. I was doing the busking thing and I was playing some very small gigs, and we started the Roots and Ruckus show, which is still going. It's now at the Jalopy Theater in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and it's still run by Farrell. So that was kind of like, it's amazing actually to think about all the way back then. Like he had it planned, like this is what I want to do, and he's just kept going. And that show, so many amazing people have played on that show and still do. So it's a great show. And anyway, if anybody's out in New York, like go check it out, or if you want to go play it, definitely you should. I think you'd have a great time. And Farrell's a
Nice.
wild man. He's amazing. So many amazing people. But anyway, I was only there for a really short time actually. Like things pretty quickly fell apart in New York. I was living off of the meager wages I was getting from playing in the streets and such. And I remember, our roommate got pissed at us for keeping too much bread in the freezer. He wanted us out. We were, a bunch of kids obsessing with Bob Dylan and just like playing annoying folk songs until 3 a.m. every day. I'm sure he was sick of us. So he wanted us out. It was the middle of winter. My mom was flying me home for her birthday. And I remember my guitar got smashed. My buddy was dancing around and it like fell off a chair and broke. And then we were losing our apartment, and I was like, man, fuck this, and I got a free flight back to California. So I just took my mom up on it. It was like just one way. And I remember the day that I was flying back, the night before, we had a farewell party, and we ate White Castle and got hammered on these barley wine beers, just like 13% beer. And I got so drunk, I blacked out, and I remember getting pantsed, and then like I just remember like people drew all over me, like wrote all over me with ink. And I remember like flying home the next day and my mom picking me up from the airport. And at that point, I always wore like a full 3-piece suit. And so
Really?
I was like fully decked out. Like I was obsessed with like Robert Johnson and the blues and shit. So I like wanted to
Unreal.
look like I was like a street performer. So I
Yeah.
wanted to like look good. And I just like, my mom picked me up from the airport. I'm in this like suit. I reek of booze, and I've got like, like ink coming up my neck, and it's kind of like smudged because I've tried
Oh
to clean it.
God.
Like I missed my flight and I was late, and she was mad, and she picked me up, and I just remember her looking at me like, what the hell happened to you? So it was like that's how I ended up back in California, and then put a band together. And then that act, I was like busking and put a band together, and that act just really took off pretty quickly, and we started going back out on the road and touring again. So it
What was
really,
that band called again?
that band was called Shaky Bones. And it
Okay,
was kind of
cool.
like an early era, like folk punk band, I guess. We were a big part of the whole folk punk scene, but never put out any like official releases. There's a ton of bootlegs and stuff like that online. And there was a great community. Like whenever we played live, it was awesome. It was a beautiful time.
Wow, yeah. And that folk punk scene is one of my favorites. It's so niche, so if you're in it and you fit in it well, it can really be pretty cool.
Dude, it was amazing. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
was, I grew up playing punk music from like 16 to 19, and then like really studied all this folk stuff from like 19 to 21, 22. And then when I started this band, it just sort of all came together. And then that just happened to be the time that was blowing up. So it really like just happened in that way where it was really natural. They were all my like, best buds at the time. So we just had it was a really wild, cool time. It was a really special time.
And were you working odd jobs at this point in time, or could you live off the music or?
Living off the music at that point, but I didn't have any money. But I was like, I remember I rented a spot under my friend's dining room table. Like that was the kind of money I had. So I was like, I'll give you guys $100 a month if I can sleep under your table. So it was
Holy
like,
shit, yeah.
yeah. So this was like, that was the vibe. And I was making whatever I could make, and all the money just went back into like making more music stuff and making more CDs and just selling everything I could.
Okay. Did you ever have a girlfriend in this time, or were the ladies like, this guy's way too homeless?
Well, as it turns out, ladies at that age, I think for some reason are attracted to that. I don't
Okay, yeah,
understand.
sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, maybe it's the like insanity and courage of it, I guess. So I did have girlfriends, but I was so honestly just focused on myself in pretty much a selfish way that I'm not super proud of, but also like, I mean, how serious do you really want anything to get at that point anyway? So I
Mhm.
think I just really wanted to do my thing. And so, yeah, like there was a girl that I dated in New York before I moved back to Cali. And then when I was in Cali, I would see different people, and eventually had a more stable girlfriend. Actually that I met on tour. She came out and we dated for a while, and there were relationships and stuff, but I was so focused on the music at that point. That it wasn't until things changed in the music that I started having more like relationship stuff happening, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I relate to that, man. I'm so obsessed with just like, making stuff and putting out music, putting out songs, writing that it's I've really struggled on the romantic front and trying to keep something solid and keep something together. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's bad or good or what, but it's just the way it is for now. And I just turned 36 last week, so I'm like,
Happy birthday, man.
yeah, I don't feel any different, but who knows what will happen. I think just these are things I try not to just obsess about or overanalyze, and if it happens, it happens. Great. And I think kids or no kids, life will be pretty cool. I think it will be.
Yeah, I feel that. I relate.
So what is your next so you move back to LA, you get the folk punk band going, it catches some steam. Are you just enthralled with music at this point? Are there any big wobbles or anything, any struggles, or are you just are you in the zone? What happens next?
I mean, so many things. So at that point, I was actually up in the Bay Area with Shaky Bones. So we were in like the suburbs, East Bay, Berkeley, Oakland, and all that. We did that band for like a year and a half. We put out 3 CDs, I think, something like that. We were really prolific and worked all the time because we were busking, playing shows. We didn't care if we were booked or not. We would show up and play. And very quickly like built a scene from that. So like it really just started to pick up a lot of momentum because it was all I did. I didn't do anything else at all. And I depended on it for my living. So I really pushed it. But I pushed it so hard that I pushed it over the brink. So we couldn't get signed. I think we were too ragtag. I'm not really sure. We like didn't quite fit into the folk punk thing in a way, I guess. I don't really know what happened, but eventually, like probably right as we were kind of hitting our like we were starting to hit this point where it was like something was going to happen. This is always how it happens. Things just started falling apart, you know? So I think there were just like people wanted different things. I was pushing really hard. And it just sort of like we sort of imploded. We were too young. We didn't know how to deal with it. Had too much responsibility on our plate. I'm sure the other guys would say have something unique to say about it, but I think it was just too much. And so I kind of started booking this endless tour and we were on the road. And I remember pulling over in like San Diego or something and getting the guys together and being like, how's everybody doing? I have a bad feeling about this. Like something feels off, you know, and we had a talk and they were like, we don't want to do this tour. We feel like it's too much. So we called off the dates and went home and kind of like did some more shows and then had a farewell show and moved on from that. So absolutely like wobbles, you know, and then started more bands from there and kind of, I remember starting another band after Shaky Bones and then feeling really disillusioned with that. This was in San Francisco and I was kind of playing this like rock and roll garage rock scene. And then I moved up to Portland, Oregon. I was living in my van and I just drove up to Portland because I saw it as like this beautiful promised land of affordability and, you know, folk music, which as it turns out it was at that point I moved up there and started Marmalade Mountain, which is my current project. This was in 2009. So
Was that when Elliott Smith was still kicking around up there?
I don't know, man. I actually didn't give a shit about Elliott Smith back then, which isn't, you know, he's amazing. I just didn't listen to him or really know anything about him. You know, I was so deep in old music. I was really into that like 30s through 50s stuff. Not even like 20s through 40s more so.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then I started, you know, my taste started changing when I got up to Portland. It really changed me in a lot of ways because I just met all these new people. So yeah, you know, I think that was kind of the next step. And then now I've been in this Marmalade Mountain world for a long time, but on and off. Like I took a long hiatus from music. I got really frustrated with it after a while and took a break. So a lot of things happened up in Portland, and before then we could get into it if you want. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, the Marmalade Mountain record's amazing. I just got it and I'm obsessed with it. It's a great job. Especially if if you like early old school Beck, there's some really great moments that are in that world, which is kind of like slacker kind of loser wave, which is like my favorite shit. So
same, dude. So that
yeah.
One Foot in the Grave was my favorite album. I was obsessed. So yeah, that was so much of Marmalade Mountain, and even my old bands comes from One Foot in the Grave and Muswell Hillbillies by the Kinks. Those 2 albums were just so foundational for me. Yeah, dude, Beck he's amazing. Like he takes folk music in a totally different direction. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's so important because I think yeah, folk music it's one of those genres that's really prone to sameness and
Oh my God.
homogenization and all that. So yeah, to really take folk and fuck it up and make it a little punk is I'm a big fan. That's the move. So
Dude,
you get up to Portland. uh the old band dissolves, the full-time money making band. What do you do for cash money when you get up there?
um I don't even remember. I think I got hit by a car. That was like my source of income. And then I like worked at a pizza shop 2 days a week. Dude, it was so cheap. I paid $160 a month for a room.
Good
And
Lord,
like
what year is this?
this is 2009 or 2000, yeah,
Wow.
2009. And I lived in this punk house with 10 people, and they had a band called Here Comes a Big Black Cloud. A bunch of people from Athens, Georgia, kind of like ex what's that group called? The
REM.
like Neutral Milk Hotel
Oh
scene.
yeah, yeah, yep, sure.
Do you remember what that label is that put all
Oh,
that?
Elephant something.
Elephant Six, yeah. So it was like all these ex Elephant Six dudes or like peripheral people who are just really, honestly, like really cool, sweet people and like super psychedelic weirdos. I moved in with them, and there was some other people around. Everybody was really creative, and it was such an idyllic time. And I just remember like riding my bike around and picking fruit and just making music all day. I really
Yeah.
didn't need that much money. There was free food everywhere, and I just made music all day. Um, and then yeah, I guess I like worked at a pizza shop 2 days a week. That's it, man. Like
Wow.
got
Okay.
hit by a car. I got a little bit of cash from that, and I was just kind of coasting up there for like a year and a half. It
So
was
you could truly live on like what, 10, 12 bucks a day in the United States in 2009 and this sort of like lifestyle?
absolutely, yeah, because we weren't, yeah, everything was found. There was this, I remember there was a thing we called a food porch, and we would just like go to this porch, and there was just food on it. We would just like get a bunch of burritos and like take them home, put them in the fridge, just like pick berries. Like it
Wow.
was so chill. I had to do more work as it got cold, which it does up there, but like it was pretty chill. And then just like,
Man.
yeah, cut my first album, which is it's called Marmalade Mountain Dreams, and it's really just like I'm learning how to record at this point. I got a tape recorder and started recording songs, and then that got out, and that started like a whole new musical era for me because I got picked up. So a guy named Matty Hubeli played in a band called Meth Teeth back then. I remember hearing that band name and just think it was
I do
great.
remember that band name actually.
Yeah.
Meth
Yeah,
Teeth.
yeah, brutal name. But so like he heard the first single I put out as Marmalade Mountain. He loved it, and then he recruited me to record Meth Teeth, and then had me join the band, and then that band got signed to Woods' Records, which was like blowing up back then, right? Like Woods
Yeah.
has signed Kurt Vile and Kevin Morby and Real Estate and whatever. So it was like all of this possibility and momentum started happening out in Portland basically right after I got there. Um, and I don't know, I guess I was just focused on that. That was just became my purpose of being up there. But there was, it wasn't easy, and a lot of things went wrong in that and kind of fell apart. I kept having these like possibilities, and then right before anything actually ever happened, it just felt like things would kind of crumble and fall apart. And so that eventually happened with those projects too. Like Meth Teeth went a different direction, and they ended up breaking up, and then I started to feel disillusioned with Portland and moved away from there, and then took a break from music for a while because I was kind of like, I actually went back to Oakland and made another record, and then ended up taking a break because I was just feeling so frustrated. As you know, it's tough, man. It's a crazy thing to get into.
Oh yeah, it's mentally insane. I asked Freedy Johnston, who was on the podcast. He's an old legend songwriter. He had a hit in the '90s, and I asked him, like, Freed, you got any advice for the younger up and comers about getting into the music business? And he looked at me dead serious, and he was like, do not do it. Don't do it. It is
Yeah.
it will fuck up your life. Don't do it. Anyway, I was laughing my ass off because he's like, I don't know if he knows how funny he is, but maybe he's just unintentionally funny, but that's how he told it like it was. But have you
Yeah.
always had have you always been interested in the business side of music, or is
No.
that kind of a
Well,
later development? Because
no,
you're like a data guy, right? You're pretty savvy with data and mathematics and shit.
yeah, I mean, like that was always came naturally to me when I was younger. And then I got really into that when I took a break from music. I studied, and I went back to school and did a lot of math and science stuff. And I've always been interested in that. I'm mostly a nature person. And from there, got interested and started learning about computers and stuff. And then all that kind of comes together. I'm into a lot of different things, and I think if you really want to be a musician, it's like you have to be an entrepreneur. Unless you're just like insanely God gifted, you know what I mean? Like it's out there, but it's really
Yeah.
tough. So I feel like, for most artists, and it's probably always been this way to some degree, but you have to like run a business. And so, I started learning about that. I think when I moved to New York, I learned more about that. Farrell was pretty savvy with money, and I just liked the way that was. I liked the New York style. It's very business centric. You cut deals, and I actually like how they do things out there. And I learned a lot of that and liked it. And I felt comfortable dealing with music and money. So I've never been shying away from that, even though I think from my hometown, like in Oakland in the Bay Area, it's very like taboo to be interested in money and music at the same time. Like you're not supposed to, it's not a possibility to make it as a musician. So you don't talk about money and you don't really go there. But I've always been comfortable with that. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to make money off of it. So and in order to do that, you got to learn how to like sell shit and advertise shit and market shit and like track your numbers, and it's business. So how do you do that? And I never had a label. I was doing it myself. So just kind of taught myself all those pieces along the way.
Yeah, man. Well, I've felt very inspired by you the last couple of months on that front, because you're pretty savvy with that stuff. And you put up that video on Halloween of you dressed up as a giant penis. And it was kind of like a little mini viral video, wasn't it? Like it went.
It's 14 million views, man.
Oh yeah, fucking hell.
It's insane. It's so stupid, but like, yeah, man. Yeah, I just like joking around. So it's like that's just playing around, And then, but yeah, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, how can I like make a video? How can I get the songs to go on this? And I haven't figured that out yet,
So
But
did the penis video like translate into any listeners?
I think probably, like I got a ton of new followers, but I don't. It's like people every day are like following and unfollowing and liking shit. The problem is now I can't keep track of things. So there's so many interactions now that it's like, it's hard to see if something that it's actually meaningful to me happens, because it's just like Instagram got too crazy for a while. It's calming down now. But to me, I don't even think, I separate the art from the other side of music, and I don't think there's that much of a difference between like a video going viral on Instagram and a song going viral on Spotify or the radio or whatever. Like Beck is a great example, right? Like Loser is very much like it's almost like a meme song, right? It's like, it's a joke to some degree. Like he got together with his buddies and just like out of nowhere started rapping a bunch of nonsense and singing about how he's a loser, and it's amazing and it's fun, because that's what like, that's the whole point, is like we're in the business of fun, So it's like, I don't see any difference between getting a video to go viral and getting a song to go viral. But I've had videos go viral and I haven't had songs go viral. So that's my next step, is like, how can I write something that's good enough or like hits a tone or something enough to actually make an impact on that scale? Like, because then you actually can generate revenue from it, which is cool. And also it's just fun, man, like revenue, whatever. It's like I can make money doing other things anyway, so it's okay. But like, it would be cool to make something that like had an impact. I think I do actually care about that, for better or worse. Yeah.
How much time do you dedicate during the week to like creating like Instagram video content, or just let me just say content?
Yeah. It depends. Right now, a little less, because I had
average.
Average. I don't know, too much. Probably like several hours, probably like maybe 5 to 10 hours a week, I would say.
Okay.
Which is pretty sizable. But like lately I've just been doing like live performances. Like I do them on TikTok now, just as a way to rehearse, because I'm playing solo right now, and I hadn't done it in a while, and I was like, if I'm going to rehearse, I might as well do it to an audience and practice performance. So now I just go on to TikTok live and just play songs and interact with whoever stops by, and it's funny, man. It's cool to see who comes through, and like you're hitting all these different age groups. And like I met somebody who went to the venue that we started in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 2005. Like he was like, oh my God, I've played that venue. And now we're like chatting over Instagram and like have stuff in common. So it's like, it's cool to connect with people in that way, even though it's kind of tacky. And I know people are kind of sour on TikTok in our generation, but I actually think it's pretty fun, and like, it's an amazing opportunity to reach a lot of people. So I like it,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool, because you're a man who kind of toured and made money in the CD generation, probably before the internet got really fast and it became harder to make money. So maybe you've answered this question already, but what gets you pumped about the new music industry? Because most people would probably, the natural narrative is to complain about it and be like, everything's fucked. We have no chance. We can't make money anymore. Give me some good news about the
I
new.
love it.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the new music generator or the new music business and everything, because somebody like me would have never been able to make a record at all. If it was 1975, nobody would have signed me. Nobody would have helped me produce a record. I'm not a trained musician. I don't have the types of talent and skills you need in that traditional sense, right? Like, I'm a weirdo, I'm an outsider, and I like to do shit my way, and I'm a stubborn person. And so that doesn't fly in the old world, but it's perfect for the new model because you can just do whatever you want, put it out there, and like, you don't need anybody. Like, at all. You can do everything yourself. So for me, that's awesome. I would love help, but I don't need it. So, like, that's amazing. So I've just been making stuff that I like and getting it out there. It's easy to collaborate. Like, I can get a song, 70% done, and then I can hire people if I want to finish it, or just find friends to collaborate with to finish it. We can record everything at home. You can build a studio for $500 that sounds awesome, and like make a hit record. Like, that's cool. So I actually am a huge fan of it, and I think if you're smart, there's way more opportunity than people realize. Like, I think it's just a different game, and it's a big change for anybody like us who grew up in a different time when it was, like, get out there, play shows, sell CDs. Now it's like, what? Like, you're trying to get on playlists and stuff. It's like a whole different thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I haven't figured it out yet. I'm still working on it, but like, I like every aspect of being a musician beyond the music. Like, songwriting is my favorite part, but I love the business of it. I love trying to figure out how the systems work and how can I reach people and all that. And all that stuff's just going to end up changing again anyway. So it's like, I just like, it's all like a puzzle, and I'm just trying to figure it out, And so to me, it's like an endless source of entertainment and challenge. So I think that feeds my intellect in a way that's really healthy. And I think it's challenging if you're more specialized. I think it's harder because it's like, you really have to team up with people who can fill in the holes if you want to specialize. And I think specialization is great. It's just, that's not me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you gotta be able to cut like a simple video. You gotta be able to record a demo. You gotta be able to do a little graphic design. Yeah, for sure.
All of it, dude. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen your stuff. It's amazing. Like, you do a great job at all of that. Like, the videos are good, the content's good, the songs are good. Like, it's all there. And so I'm, we're doing a podcast too. It's awesome. You do all this different stuff. That's cool, man. It's not easy, I can't imagine, but it's pretty badass.
It's fun, man. It's some sort of almost like a medical addiction. How if you're not making stuff, you feel,
Yeah.
I don't know, you feel maybe a little empty, or maybe it's sometimes just as simple as being on the American hamster wheel of like, oh, I'm not doing anything, I'm not getting anything done. I don't think it's that, but I don't know if you ever watched that Frank Zappa documentary.
I've seen a bunch of clips of him, and I've read his autobiography, but I don't know if I've seen the doc.
Yeah, interesting guy. Like, not a guy I aspire to be, just kind of like a super asshole and a kook. But I could relate to him, and like him needing to be holed up in his studio all week and just like having to make shit and like just fill shelves with records and paintings. Like, I can kind of relate to that to keep my own sanity, but I don't want to go as far as to like destroying all my relationships like he did.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, he's a wild one. I don't know, dude. Being a creative person is really hard, right? Like, it's like, yeah, it can be super isolating. So it's like, how do you find a balance with that, with the rest of your life? And I don't know if anybody has an answer to that. Hopefully some people do, but it's really challenging for sure.
Yeah, I was talking about this with my buddy Otto, how it's like you can kind of feel like, how did he put it? It was really funny. Like, you could feel with art, it's like you feel that dread of like having to finish things, or like, but then you don't feel empty. But then you could live a simpler life, and it would be a lot easier, but you would probably feel empty. So it's like this trade-off. It's like, and I'm missing the quote, which is gold, and I'm kind of bombing his philosophy. But what I'm trying to say is, if I went and like lived a life of Applebee's, Starbucks, parking lot culture, life would be maybe easier, but I might kill myself.
Yeah, I think it'd be harder in different ways. Like, I tried that. I went back to school. Got a job because I was like, this music shit's too hard, and I did it. and made a good living, got a good career together, and was like, this is boring. I'm bored out of my mind. I was miserable. Had a relationship, had a lot of good, a lot of really good things. I was happy in some ways, but I was so bored and I started to lose it. So that's when I moved back to LA. I took like 5, 6 years, 7 years off of music, and then came
Wow.
back to LA. And now it's been like, now there's a bit of a balance where I've got both, but like it was challenging. And I don't know that it was the right decision, because so many people, when I did that and like tried to work on this other side of my life, I watched everybody that I came up with take off, like
Mm.
all their music careers started to come together, and was like, shit, if I'd have just stuck with it, maybe I would have succeeded in the way that I had wanted to at that time. Maybe I gave up too early. But then I realized there's no such thing. It's like you just keep going. And as long as an
Yeah.
artist, your job is to make art. It's not to be famous, so it's like, as long as you're making the art, you're doing the work, and you can't control the outcomes. And that's something that I think I'm starting to finally get more comfortable with. It's like, as long as you're making the art, like that's the
Yeah.
thing that counts.
That's
So
all, that's really all you can do, and
dude,
I think the struggle is pretty addicting.
yes.
I think you're probably addicted to it. I certainly am. And for living a more straight and narrow life, like I'm not putting down like uh going to work in the burbs and the corporate working at an insurance place. Like that works for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
if it works, that's great. But you can't put a price on your own sanity, and you got to put yourself in environments that work for you. And I think this creative masochism seems to be working for me at the moment.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. I relate. You can't not do it, so you got to do what you got to do.
Don't not do it.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do next? What's your next project outside of music, if anything?
That's a great question. Outside of music, I'm not sure, because I'm actually like about to probably end a job that I've been working on. I've had a day job for the last 6 years, and I think I'm actually, after this, I'm gonna have a meeting and find out where that stands, which is gonna be crazy because I might be getting laid off, which would be awesome. And then I'll get some time to get some money and figure out what I want to do next.
Yeah,
Some
man.
severance pay. So then it's like, I think I'm gonna figure it out. Like I want to travel again. I want to make another record, but it's all music stuff. I kind of think I want to settle down a little bit. I want to get a house, and I want to like build a little bit, like root, and like, kind of have a little bit of a family life. I still want to keep making my music, but that'll happen always forever. I think I just want to like settle into life, travel a little bit outside of music, and just go places and hang out, be with friends. And I'm a big nature person, so like some backpacking trips. I'm on a little bit of like a psychedelic binge right now. I've been enjoying just like going on psychedelic trips with friends or just by myself, and just like thinking about things that I want to do, and just changing my perspective on how I relate to the world and myself emotionally and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of like what I've been doing. And like, yeah, getting into dumb stuff on the internet.
Are you still addicted to baseball cards and sports cards?
Dude, yes, I am. It's like a big thing for me. So this is another like side effect of TikTok. I started like watching videos on TikTok and very quickly realized that I'm addicted to watching. There's like these live streamers that just like open packs of baseball cards and stuff. I'm really into basketball. So for me, it's like,
Same.
dude, yeah. So I watch these guys just like open basketball cards. It's like the dumbest, nerdiest thing. But it taps into this like really child version of me
Yeah.
that used to like go collect these cards. And so I like see these like grown ass and just like collecting basketball cards, and I like get off on it. I just like love it. So like I started collecting basketball cards, and I'm seeing this girl now, and we like go get basketball cards together, and I'm like telling her about all the players. I know all their shit, and like it's not about like money to me. It's about like the sport of finding these cards. And it's like there's like a whole subculture of it now. Like you go to like a Walmart, and the aisles are just like empty. Like everything's been sold, because there's like,
Wow.
ever since TikTok and like all these people live streaming all this, now there's this like fan rush that's happening where all these people are getting into cars again. And so you go to the store and they're all out. So it's like part of the adventure is just like going around and trying to figure out like where you can still buy these things. It's so stupid, but like,
Wow, that's so great. I mean, that was so much of my childhood. Just like
right.
nothing put a tingle down my spine more than going to the card shop, getting your $2 a week and buying a pack of cards. Who's your favorite 90s baller NBA?
NBA 90s baller. I was a Charles Barkley fan, dude.
Yeah, nice.
It was like, I mean, I still am. He's like he's a commentator now. He's hilarious. I love
Yeah,
him.
he's gold.
Yeah.
Barkley, Matumbo. I saw Matumbo's kid play college basketball the other night in real life. Sean Kemp, the Rain Man,
Oh
Scottie
yeah.
Pippen. Great era. We could talk 90s NBA all day, but dude, I'm a big fan of yours as a musician and as a dude. I love your ethos. You're just
Appreciate it.
again ideal guest for the show, and this was a primo episode. I really had a great time. It was easy peasy for me, and you just got great stories. You're a great storyteller, and you really put your nutsack on the line. So I appreciate that.
No, it's still intact, so I feel like came out all right, you know.
That a baby. Don't pop your sack. You're still young. Well, we'll keep it going. We'll steer people to the Marmalade Mountain streaming pages. Go to Bandcamp and buy a vinyl record directly. Bypass Jeff, the overlord of commerce, and get it straight from the artist. I think that's all I got, man. Let's keep in touch, and let's connect in Los Angeles, California soon.
Anytime, man. It's great chatting with you. Thanks for having me.
Much love, dude.